Hello everybody, welcome to the fifth and final lesson of this Axure course. In this lesson we'll be exploring how to add validation to the online booking form that we've been building in the previous 4 lessons. So in the previous lesson I showed you how we can add a confirmation page to the form to give the user the impression that a request is being processed and their information is being stored. Now similarly, again, for the sake of prototyping, it's always useful to show validation, especially on things like forms. Again, it gives that real impression to the user that what they're using and what they're testing is real. So to do this, what we can do is download something called Validator for Axure. So if you open up a new browser, not on Axure. So if you open up Chrome and search for Validator for Axure, and what you should see, first result is from Usability Matters. And what this is just a third-party bit of software that will help us implement validation for our online form. So simply click Get the File, really short download, go back to Axure, get rid of this. And then in your Libraries panel on the left-hand side here, you'll see a little hamburger icon there. Click on that and hit Load Library. In your downloads, you should then have, I've downloaded it twice, as you can see, but in your downloads menu here, what you should see is the form validator rplib file. If you open that, it will tell me that I've already got it installed, which is great, and it should be refreshed. Click OK. And then what you'll see on the left-hand side here is one submit button, which is called a form validator. So what we can do to our existing online booking form is get rid of the submit button that we had put there beforehand. So delete that and drag on the form validator button. So as you can see by default, it's at a fixed size there. So we can fix that by actually going into the shape itself by double clicking over here on our outline page panel. And then we can set the width there manually to 300 just so it looks a little neater. Okay, cool. So to connect our submit button and the inputs on the rest of our online booking form, it's a really simple process. Firstly, what we need to do is establish what are our required fields on this online form. So your first impression will probably be, well, they're all required, right? Maybe except for the phone number, let's say. So that will be absolutely fine. So what we need to do then is go through our online booking form, highlight the components individually, and then on the right hand side here in the inspector panel, we have our component name. So here it's a drop down title. To connect our submit button and each of these components, what we need to do is tell our validator script that these are required fields. And to do that, we simply add an asterisk to the end of the component name like so. Hit enter. And then once we've done that, we scroll to the bottom of the same panel, the properties panel, and we'll see an option here for a submit button. So what Axure is doing there is telling you that, is this component related to any submit button on the same form? And in our case, yes it is. It's connected to the form validator that we just downloaded. So if you click on the drop down here, you'll see the form validator button, which is a dynamic panel. So double click on that. And then what we've done there now is connect our submit button and told it that this is a required field. And what we can then do is go through the rest of our components and do the same thing. Add an asterisk and hook up the submit button. So email address, yes, that is going to be required too. Hook up the submit button. Departure date, that will also be required. Return date, like so. Number of adults, yes, that will definitely be required. Number of children also. Change that name to children. That is also required. Got the submit button. The phone number, we don't really need that as required right now, but we do need these preferences saved. So similarly here to a radio group, simply add the asterisk on the end of that name and add the submit button. So if we go and preview that, save our document, preview this in the browser, and then what you should see is that when you click on the submit button, we have a hell of a lot of red text and red inputs. So the validation is working. And what you can see now is the cursor is pre-filled onto our first input, so it's encouraging us to correct the information and pass the validation. Okay, cool. But once we hit submit and once we have filled that information, we still won't see our confirmation page. So again, considering what we did in the last lesson, what we need to do is add a case to our button. At on click, we need to open a link in the current window to our confirmation page and click OK. Enter some real information. We'll put in our name, our email address, UX Club. We're departing on that day and coming back on that day. Number of adults, 3 adults and 2 children. Don't need to enter my phone number, it's not required. I would like to be contacted via email. Submit that and hey presto, got it. Have a great holiday. So what we've done there is we've added the validation to the form, we've filled out everything that the form requires us to do, and thus it is showing us a confirmation page. And that is how to add validation to your Axure forms.